Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another Gary Numan video. Seem to be getting through a few lately, but he is one of my favourite artists. Obviously Gary Numan's I've been a fan of Gary Numan since 1980 really, and onwards. He was my first real hero in music, if you like. I mean, before that, I did like a bit of David Bowie and a bit of Mark Bolan, but not to the extent where I got obsessed with, and that was Gary Numan. And over the years, I've come into fans of other bands, you know, like New Model Army, another favourite of mine, and things like that, Sucker Ross, you know, and they've become favourite bands of mine over the years. But Gary's always been like the sort of foremost and sort of pathed the way I am, really. It was like you make a connection with an artist and his fans, and over the years going to various concerts you tend to sort of make some sort of bond, like a little family with the fans and stuff like that. And so he's always been really important to me, and this week has been a good week for Numan fans because there's been a re-release of an old Gary Numan favourite, which has arrived. Now, a lot of people think, well, why do you buy something that you already have? It's because it's just a part of collecting. You know, if say like, because this album, which had come out in the 80s, the sound quality from then, you know, the recordings are much better now. You know, the equipment they've got now that they can make the sound more full, more sort of like bodied, and it almost like listening to a new album, and it gives you a chance to revisit those memories and times that you had at that time. So let's open the box. Okay, and we're talking about Berserker. Now, I only buy the CD version of it because I don't have a record player. I am thinking about getting a record player, and if I do, I will. I do have some old Gary Numan vinyl, and I believe I've got Berserker amongst them. But yeah, it's just great to see this out. This came out in 1984. I do already own it on CD, but this is like an older version of it. And this was his first release on his own label, Numa Records, because before that he was signed to Beggar Banquet Records. And then he parted ways, I think possibly because he maybe felt a little restricted and he wanted to sort of change direction. But if you're under a company and your other albums have sold well, they're going to want you to sort of carry on with that, aren't they? But I think Gary wanted to try and do new things and different things and produce his own work. So he started his own record company, which unfortunately ended up having a load of issues with him financially. Not just because of the company itself, but other things that come inside. His, I would say, popularity, but yeah, his popularity sort of was going down slightly. But although he had his fan base, his hardcore fan base, which he still has today, he sort of came a little bit out of the limelight. And the stuff he was recording was so far withdrawn from his earlier stuff, which was really sort of dark synth driven and sort of really low synth bass lines, and with some sort of like catchy bass and, you know, some sort of like punk guitar thrown in. He kind of went away from that. And in interviews, he says because he'd been listening to things that were produced by Trevor Horn, who's like a producer of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and he was producing stuff that was selling loads of records and you know, becoming popular. And I suppose Gary must have thought, well, this is the way forward. I like the sound of that. Let's take it forward. But unfortunately, it didn't sort of pay off too well. This is an exception, and the album before it, Warriors, which was on Beggar's Banquet, were an exception. They were absolutely fantastic. In fact, the one after it, The Fury, was amazing too. But then after that, it just seemed to piddle down. And Gary says in interviews what he did, he got loads of good musicians in to his albums, like good guitarists and brilliant keyboard players and stuff like this, and that's not what people were fans of. The people were fans of his music because it was so different, it was original, and they started to sound, and this is going to sound strange, but a little bit Americanized, I think, because it was like, it just had that sort of like American sort of feel to it, some of the music that he was starting to bring out, with a little bit of a funky sort of sound to it, with lots of saxophones and sort of chirpy keyboards rather than the gloomy keyboards. It just sort of changed, and I think a lot, it sort of made his sort of popularity go down slightly, but he still wanted to produce big shows because he was renowned for bringing big sets on the stage. So he still did that, although it was costing him more to do that than to actually play the shows. So he actually went into a stage of sort of like financial issues until sort of mid 90s, I'd say, and then he started to pick up again. But anyway, back to 1984 and the release of Berserker. So let's open this. Can't wait. It's fantastic. This album has so many memories for me. I'll try and tell you a few little stories as I go along. Now, I first saw Gary in 1980 at Hammersmith on the Telly tour. I was only about, I wasn't very old. I was really young, about 11 or something like that. I went with my mum's friend, and he blew me away. And then I was lucky enough the next year to go to the Wembley shows, which broke my heart, to be honest. And I really thought, oh, this is going to be the end of Gary Numan, because I was young and all he was doing was retiring from touring because he just had enough of all the sort of politics that went along with it. And I thought it was going to be the end of what he was going to be doing, but no, it wasn't. But anyway, and it broke my heart. And he didn't tour for a couple of years, and he came back in 1983 with the Warriors tour. Now, I don't know if you guys ever had or ever get what's called post-gig blues. Now, I'm taking the sticker off because I'm going to put it on the cover. I've only had it twice, I think, in my life. That's it. I just want to put the sticker back on. I've only had it twice in my life, and that was 1983, Gary Numan Warriors. The day after, I was sobbing at home. Again, I was really young. I was about 14 to 15, and I was absolutely sobbing because it was just like, because your mind remembers what you saw that night, and you're just thinking, oh my God, I wish I was there, but sadly it wasn't, so it was just, I had the blues. But then he toured last year, with the following year, with the Berserker tour, 1984, and I went on the 11th of September, which I think was the first night at Hammersmith. He did 2 nights. I went to the first one, the 11th, and again, it was a few weeks before my birthday, my 16th birthday, so I was 15 coming on to 16, and again, it was such a memorable concert. It was fantastic. It was so different from every concert that he did. It was almost like a sort of David Bowie persona, if you know what I mean. Like, he was different characters. I mean, in the Telly tour, he had his jumpsuit on, and in the Wembley show, he had a mixture of it all. And then he came back with the Mad Max sort of look with the Warriors tour, and then he came with this ghost image, and it was all sort of blue and white. And it was absolutely fantastic. So it just holds so much memories to me, this album. And I remember going to buy this album when it came out, because he was advertising it a lot on TV. The single came out, Berserker, which I brought, and then I brought the album on the release date. And then my friend Trevor, he went down London and bought tickets for the London show. Anyway, I like the box because it's a clam. You know those horrible boxes where you got a slit there and every time you pick it out it falls out? I hate that, but this is nice because they've done it in a clam box, which is really, really cool. So it comes with 4 discs, and it comes with a booklet. Let's see what the booklet's about. It's the lyrics for the songs with some black and white images in the middle. Yeah, it's the lyrics for the songs, and gives you a little bit of information about the remix and who performs on it at the back. That's cool. It comes with the original album in its entirety. Only 9 tracks, if I remember right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, 9 tracks on a white label, which is cool. It comes with another one with extended versions and B-sides, I believe, from the various singles that he had. Singles on this, I remember Berserker, obviously, and I remember My Dying. What other singles were on here? My Dying Machine. I'm sure that was a single, and I'm not sure if it was This Is New Love. I can't remember. But anyway, there we go. That's the 2 discs of the album, but it also comes with a live album called White Noise over 2 discs. Now that is the original cover of White Noise that was released on album. I've got stories behind that as well. So that comes in its full entirety, and these are on blue disc. Which is cool. Yeah, I do possess that album as well in my Gary Numan Live box set. It is in there, White Noise, with all the others. Yeah, there's White Noise. But yeah, so they've all been remastered. Yeah, White Noise, here's the story behind that, because obviously the concert blew me away. It was an amazing set. It was an amazing concert. Really cool. And again, I thought about it for days and days after, but I didn't really have blues over that one. I think I was probably a year older, I suppose, and thought, well, I'm going to see him again. You know, you sort of, as you get older, you sort of realise this sort of thing happens. And then it was like, one day I went down to my local record shop in Stevenage called FL Moores. And I normally went down on a Monday after school to get any sort of like new singles were out. I went down there and they had this 7-inch blue vinyl called the Live EP. And I just thought, oh, okay, excellent, amazing. And it had 4 tracks, all recorded on the 11th of September, Hammersmith Odeon, the night I went. I can't remember the track listing. I'm sure it was, I'm going to probably get this wrong. You might be able to correct me in the comments. I think it was Our Friends Electric, Berserker, I Die, You Die, and We're Glass. I'm sure it was that, but it was on blue vinyl, and it was really, really cool. I thought, wow, this is amazing. I've got a memento from the show I went to. It was like a mini concert on a 7-inch single, 4 discs, and I thought no more of it. And you know, I wasn't in, I was young, so I didn't buy music press or anything like that, so I didn't know when new releases were sort of coming out, unless they were being advertised on telly or stuff like that. You know, I did sign up to the Gary Numan sort of fan page for a while, group, when it's to get adverts through from and stuff like that and post about releases, but I didn't know anything about White Noise. So, you know, I think probably a few weeks or maybe a month down the line, I went down there and I do my normal thing. I go to the Gary Numan section just in case they released anything that I haven't got. I mean, they've done it before because I released those Tubey Army EPs, the 12-inch EPs. I remember buying them because I didn't expect them to be released. So I was just flicking through, and then I just saw, what's this? Lifted it out. It's like, White Noise? What's that? And it was heavy. I thought, what is this? And it felt it's just a double album. So I turned it around, and there it was. That, you know, and as it says, recorded live, 11th of September, Hammersmith Odeon. I thought, oh my God, it's the whole concert. And I tell you, I was sweating. I was absolutely sweating. I couldn't believe it. And I went straight to the counter, didn't look at anything else, straight to the counter, paid my money. Now that was $5.99. The vinyl of Berserker when I bought it was $3.99. It's now $24.99 to buy the CD. But it was like $3.99 when I bought the album, and it was $5.99 for this double live album. And you opened it up and it was like, wow. And I just went home and I played it, and all those memories come flooding back from the tour. It was amazing. It was an amazing show. I enjoyed it so much. We were balcony seats. I've told you before, if you've seen any of my videos, whenever I've seen Gary at Hammersmith, because I always associate the Odeon with Gary Numan, I was always got the balcony seats, always. And I just think because of the first time we did it, we had balcony seats. I just didn't want to sit from any other angle. It's stupid, I know. Over the years, I've been down the front a couple of times, but not at Hammersmith, but his other shows. But whenever he played Hammersmith, I want the balcony. And it just was brilliant. You know, we went there and bought the t-shirts, scarves, the program. It was an amazing time. So this was the program from the tour. So I think I've met Gary a couple of times, and he has signed that one from me. It says Full Joff, Gary Numan. So yeah, I've met Gary a couple of times now. This is the actual tour program from 1984. Still got it to this day. Looking a bit worse for wears, but to be honest, it's kept its coloration, which is cool. There's all the tour dates, and there we are, the two London at the bottom there. And yeah, I went on the 11th, which I believe is what White Noise was recorded on. And it just goes through all this sort of amazing pictures and stuff about Gary, history of the Berserker. There's an interview in there with him. Talks about the album, interviewing about the album. There we got the full lineup. I can't remember the lineup because it had changed. We'd lost Paul Gardner, unfortunately passed, and we'd lost, I think, Billy Curry gone back to Ultravox. So we had a bit of a new lineup. So let's see if I can remember them. John Webb, obviously, that's his brother. He's a pilot, I believe, and he was on keyboards and saxophone. We have Andy Colgan is on bass, Russell Bell on guitar and keyboards, Chris Payne, if I remember right, on keyboards, Cedric Sharpley, who's sadly no longer with us, on drums, and Karen, I can't remember her surname, on vocals. But yeah, that was the band, Dramatis or whatever they were called at the time. But yeah, I remember them really well. Got an advert in there for The Plan, which was a sort of unreleased Tubeway Army stuff from sort of sessions and stuff like that, which is quite good actually. It's got another interview with Gary talking about the show, about how he sort of like planned it and organised it and stuff like that. We got Larry Lober and Ho Ho Khan, which were the two sort of support acts on the tour. Got their own little piece in there about them. An advert for Gary Numan's Warbirds, because I don't know if you're a Gary Numan fan, but he actually was a stunt pilot too. A very well sort of class stunt pilot. I love the back picture. And he released a couple of videos, which I used to have on VHS, don't have them anymore. But anyway, yes, I bought White Noise. It's incredible. And about a week or so later, in the same shop, in the video section VHS, they had White Noise. Well, it wasn't called that. It was called Berserker Tour. And it was like the highlight. It wasn't the whole show. It was the highlights. I had that on DVD, but I liked it because it concentrated on Berserker songs and Warrior songs, which is really cool. But he did release the whole show as well as Cold Warning DVD. A few years ago now, 2008, something like that. It come out. I can't remember. Oh, excuse me, guys. Like I said, I'm an old man now. Forget everything. But this is the complete show of White Noise. which has ended up in this box set, which is cool. Really, really cool. So before we finish, I'll try and run through the track lists for you, just in case you're thinking of buying it, if you've not got these or anything. Right, so Berserker itself, the actual album track listing is Berserker, This Is New Love, The Secret, My Dying Machine, Cold Warning, Pump It Up, The God Machine, A Child with a Ghost, and The Hunter. On the second disc, you get Empty, this is B-side, Empty Bed, Empty Heart, Here I Am, which is a B-side, She Cries, which is a B-side, Rumours, which is a B-side, The Ship Comes Out, which is a B-side. It's got Berserker, which I think is the extended version, This Is New Love, extended version, The Secrets, My Dying Machine are extended versions, Cold Warning, extended versions, and The Hunter, extended versions. So that's what you got on there. Right, the track listing for the live album is Berserker, Metal, Me I Disconnect From You, Remind Me to Smile, Sister Surprise, Music for Chameleons, The Iceman Comes, Cold Warning, Down in the Park. Disc 2 is This Prison Moon, I love that song. I Die You Die, My Dying Machine, Cars, We Take Mystery to Bed, We Are Glass. And it's got the encores of This Is New Love and My Shadow in Vain, and the encore of Our Friends Electric. So that is the all the tracks that you get in the box set. So it's pretty cool. It's great to have this. I will check out the sound, and hopefully it's going to be awesome, which it will be. The album is amazing. Gary seemed to, I don't think he was embarrassed by like his Berserker and Warriors stuff. But I think because his music changed so dramatically again, since when he met his wife Gemma, and he sort of like, she helped him put his career back on track by using his imagination again, and sort of maybe introducing him to artists that influence him. I know Depeche Mode's Songs of Faith and Devotion was a big influence on his sort of sounds of albums when he started to become popular again. And he also listened to quite a lot of early Nine Inch Nails. And he also realised that he was getting shouted out by loads of artists, David Bowie, Trent Reznor, the Foo Fighters, just to name a few, were all sort of shouting at. Even I think Kurt Cobain has done some Gary Numan cover. I'm sure he has, I'm not sure, but all these people, I think it's sort of like, it sort of wowed Gary, you know, and that gave him that sort of push forward into creativity again, and he started to produce a more harder industrial sound, which is fantastic, and it suited the period, and you know, and it's amazing, but it still had his classic dark synth sound in the back, which I love. You know, I really did. His last single, Intruder, was fantastic. A lot of fans don't the album, you know, they like Savage, the one before, which is amazing, but I do like Intruder. I think it's a great little album. But yeah, it's cool to look back at this, and it's a great release. I do recommend getting it if you've not got it. If you've only got it on vinyl and you've not picked it up on CD as yet, it's definitely worth a pick up, just because you get the whole album, the B-sides from the singles, the extended versions of the songs that were released, and you get the full live show from that tour. Fantastic. Yes, it would have been awesome if they would have put a DVD or a Blu-ray copy of the live show in there, but they didn't. But there you go. Cheers, guys.